All righty. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Planning Commission of Moreno Valley. I now call this meeting to order at 6:02 p.m. And we have a roll call vote.
Commissioner Baker,
Here.
Commissioner Sims,
Here.
Commissioner Steffen,
Present.
Commissioner Cobian,
Here.
Vice Chair Chen,
Here.
and Chair Dejanay.
Here. Well, Ray, put you on the spot. They're good to have you back. Commissioner Baker will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Begin.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. All right, we're now going to move on to the approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion and a second?
I motion.
Second.
Okay, that's a motion by Commissioner Colby and a second by Commissioner Chen. Can we have a vote, or is it electronic? Oh, look at that thing.
Oh, this is a memorandum.
All right, so on the public comment, let me turn that on. The public comment procedures. Before we hear public comments this evening, I would ask and encourage everyone to participate to keep their comments respectful toward others, especially toward the individual speaking. Of course, I embrace and support the First Amendment right to free speech, including everyone's right to speak at this meeting and share his or her views about issues concerning the city. But we can accomplish that more as a city, as a private citizen, by being civil and respectful toward one another in this meeting. During the public comment period for each item, as well as during the public comment period for items not on the agenda, each member of the public who has signed up to speak will have a maximum of 3 minutes. Any person wishing to address the commission on matters either under the public comment sections of the agenda or scheduled items for the public hearing must fill out a request to speak form available at the door. The completed form must be submitted to the secretary prior to the agenda item being called by the chairperson. In speaking to the commission, members of the public may be limited to 3 minutes per person, except for the applicant for entitlement. The commission may establish an overall time limit for comments on a particular agenda item. Members of the public must direct their questions to the chairperson of the commission and not to other members of the commission, the applicant, the staff, or audience. Next is a public comment for items not on the agenda. Are there any speakers?
Yes, Chair. We have one, Tom Jarrell Sr.
Good evening, Chairman Dejanay and Vice Chair Chen. Congratulations on your positions there, and members of the staff and the public, both here in the chambers and watching at home. Tom Jarrell speaking on behalf of myself. I just wanted to say it's really good to see those two chairs filled up by two very competent people, and I have nothing coming to the commission, so I'm not here to earn points, but just to say that they're qualified, competent planning commissioners. They're honest people. They're hardworking. They do their homework, and I'm happy to see them both back seated. It's needed. And to some of the newer members of the commission, I encourage you to implore on their seasoned history. They've got a lot of ring savvy, and something I share in common with Mr. Baker is they're both construction guys, and I think, and I hope the future city council, Ray finishes his term, they always keep at least one good construction person on there, because there's a different perspective. They know how to read plans. They see it. They see the mess ups coming sometimes that somebody else may not see. And so I'm not saying they're incompetent, but just gives that added inside value. So I think it's very good. I'm happy to see him back on. I wish him a good, successful tenure, and I thank you all for your service. So and I wish you a really happy Thanksgiving and have a good meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other speakers?
No, sir.
The next item on the agenda is the consent calendar. At this time, we don't have any items on the consent calendar. The next item will be non-public hearing items. The next item on the no items. Wow, it's moving right along. Next item is public hearing items. Number one, the applicant is requesting approval for the general plan amendment to change the land use designation for the project site residential 10, a change of zone to a zoning designation of the project site residential single family 10, a conditional use permit for planned unit development and a tentative tract map for 37 lot single family residential subdivision with common area lettered lots. Do we have a staff report?
Thank you, Chair. The presentation this evening will be made by Associate Planner Danielle Harper Scott.
Thank you, Planning Commissioners. Danielle Harper Scott, Associate Planner. The project before you this evening includes a general plan amendment, a change of zone, conditional use permit, and a tentative tract map to facilitate a 37-lot planned unit development. The 4.81-acre project site is currently vacant and is located on the north side of Cactus Avenue, east of Merino Beach Drive. The project site is within the Residential 5 general plan and zoning designation. A general plan amendment, along with a change of zone, is requested to change the current land use designation to Residential 10 and the zoning designation to Residential Single Family 10 District. The proposed general plan amendment and change of zone are consistent with the surrounding development and density. The project site is bounded by single-family residential developments within the R5 and RS10 district to the north and west, vacant land within the R10 district to the east, single-family residences within the Merino Valley Ranch specific plan medium low density residential district to the south. And based on the neighborhood characteristics, the proposed amendments are both compatible and in kind with the surrounding densities and development pattern. The granting of the proposed general plan amendment and change of zone will allow the project to obtain the desired density of 7.9 units per gross acre. Additionally, the applicant is requesting approval of a conditional use permit to allow a planned unit development and a tentative tract map to subdivide the project site into 37 single-family residential lots and 5 lettered lots. The newly created lots will range in size from 3,040 to 5,016 square feet. Vehicular access to the site will be provided by 2 access points on Bradshaw Circle. Each residence will be provided a private driveway accessed by internal roads. Each residential lot has been designed to include a 2-car garage with a driveway that accommodates a minimum of 2 parking spaces. The proposed 2-story residences have been designed in the Spanish, French, and traditional architectural styles and will be offered in 3 distinct floor plans with varying building designs and roof lines. Exterior designs will include stucco finishes, detailed roof elements, awnings, metal railings, and decorative windows and doors. Landscaping proposed as part of the project will consist of a variety of drought-tolerant ornamental trees, shrubbery, and ground cover. A common recreation area is provided in a central location to the residential development. Amenities provided include a basketball court, outdoor gathering areas with barbecue grills and benches, a playground, and enhanced landscape walkways. An initial study was prepared by EPD Solutions, Inc. in compliance with the California Environmental Quality Act, with findings that a mitigated negative declaration serves as the appropriate CEQA documentation. With the implementation of the proposed mitigation measures, the proposed project will not have a significant effect on the environment. The public comment period for the notice of availability of the M&D began on October 13th and ended on November 2nd, which satisfies the requirement of the 20-day review period. No comments have been received by the city in response to the notice of availability. Additionally, the project was appropriately noticed within the newspaper, on site, and to all properties within 600 feet. To date, staff has received 2 public comment letters, one which was included in the agenda packet, and the other was included in a memorandum that was provided to the commission at the dais. The memorandum also included an inadvertent reference to Exhibit B within Resolution 2022-46, which was published in the agenda. City staff combined the conditions of approval for the conditional use permit and tentative tract map into a singular exhibit. Therefore, there is not an Exhibit B within the resolution. Lastly, a revision to the Public Works Department condition of approval number 115 is proposed to correct the limits of the sidewalk improvements. The condition shall read as follows. The developer shall be required to construct full street length improvements with the exception of the westerly sidewalk on Bradshaw Circle, local street MVS 107A along the property boundaries. In conclusion, the project has been as designed and conditioned complies with the city's municipal code. Therefore, staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve resolution numbers 2022-43 through 46, recommending that the City Council approve the environmental determination and the proposed project. This concludes staff's presentation. Staff is available for any questions. The applicant is also present.
Thank you. Are there any commissioner questions for staff?
I have one. So on the street improvements on Bradshaw, it's Bradshaw to the west and Bradshaw to the east. So I'm talking about Bradshaw to the east that goes down to Cactus. So did I hear you right? Is it this revised condition? So it will be a full street improvement?
So we'll refer that to Public Works for a response.
Hi, good evening. This is Clement Jimenez with the Land Development Division. You are correct. The sidewalk improvements are going to be proposed on the project side of Bradshaw Circle, which is the east side of the street, but no sidewalk would be proposed on the west side, which is not on the project side of the street. However, full pavement improvements from curb to curb will be proposed by the developer.
And what is the curb to curb?
It is 36 feet.
Okay, and what kind of improvements happen at the intersection of Cactus and Bradshaw East? Is there a ability to put in a taper and everything for the right turn coming out, a right turn movement going west onto Cactus out of Bradshaw?
Yes, the intersection improvements on the west side of Bradshaw exist with an existing curb return. And so this project's going to build another curb return on the east side of the street. So you'll have full turning movements at that intersection with the curb returns proposed. In addition, there'll be street improvements proposed on Cactus Avenue to half width plus the traveling on the other side.
What happened? I seem to recall. I can't remember if both of these came up. These other two cul-de-sacs. What are those cul-de-sac? What's the zoning on the two cul-de-sac projects?
Both of the cul-de-sacs that are located, you're referencing the ones that are to the northwest?
Yeah, the
Correct.
37580 and the whatever the other one here.
Both of those cul-de-sacs were 8 and 10 lots.
Yeah.
R5 zone.
R5. Okay. And so this is going, this PUD or whatever we call this thing is going to be what now? It's 37 lots on 5 acres, 4.8.
So the property as proposed is 7.9 units per acre, which is actually consistent with the Moreno Valley Ranch to the south. That's a 6 to 8 dwelling unit density. And then to the east, you have the R10 zoning for multifamily residential. And then
Directly to the east.
directly to the east. And then directly,
adjacent to this property.
yes, sir.
Okay.
And then directly to the northeast, you have RS10 as well, already established, and residential densities already established to that as well. So
And
this
what-
would ultimately be a transitional use at the 7.9.
And the street improvements on the Bradshaw, on the north side of Bradshaw, in front of these cul-de-sacs, what was conditioned for that?
So they were required to do the street improvements along their side of the street. And they are actually, those projects are moving forward. We're waiting to see, them execute grading permits and the other permits required.
Thank you.
Are there any other commissioner questions of staff?
Can't read this.
No other questions?
No, he answered it. It was R5.
Yeah, I think that was my same concern, but
Okay, I think I had a question. I kind of slipped it away there.
And what was the size of the house product that was going to be put on these, range from what to what in square feet?
So the house product is currently identified at approximately 1,500 on the low end and 2,500 on the high end.
And these will all be they'll all be deedable.
2-story, fee simple lots.
No, no. Okay. I had no, that doesn't, that has to do more with the impact fees. I just had a small question about that, but I can research that myself. Are there any other commissioner
Now,
questions?
are these going to have street parking also? I thought I read that.
Yes, there will be 16 guest parking throughout the site, street parking.
So they're basically not going to be able to park outside in front of their house. They're just going to have a designated area.
They do have a driveway, which can accommodate a minimum of 2 parking spaces, and then as well as on-street parking.
You confuse me when you say that because you're saying there's going to be 16 spaces, but that doesn't mean that they're going to be able to park in front of their house.
I apologize, I misunderstood your question. So they can park on their residential lot in their driveway, and then there's also 16 spaces that are spread along the street that you probably can't see on this map itself, but there's designated street parking. There's 16 spaces, parallel parking.
Through the whole track.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Can I ask one more question? On the, see here, on the west, I forgot my glasses, so I apologize. But if on the internal circulation street there you go. That runs north and south adjacent to track 37580. What's the treatment? What is the treatment there? Hey, there I am. What's the treatment between the wall and the what's that going to be like between the boundary condition on the tract, and there's going to be something maybe, and then a road. Otherwise, we're going to have a road in somebody's backyard.
So you're referring to the westernmost side of the project, correct?
Can we get that over here? What happens here? Otherwise, you're going to have somebody driving in their backyard.
It's a 4-foot sidewalk along that edge.
Is there a masonry wall or?
Yes, there is.
Okay. I don't know who this is.
Oh, that's
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? No. Would the applicant like to speak?
Evening, members of the Planning Commission. I'm George Meeker of RC Hobbs Company. Our civil engineer, Mr. Bob Beers, was supposed to be here, but he's running late, so I can answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, sir. Any questions of the applicant? Well, thank you, sir. I'm sure that if any questions arise, we'll be happy to call you up. Thank you. All right, so at this time, I'd like to open the public testimony. The clerk will call upon each person who has requested to speak. Each member of the public wishing to speak will have a maximum of 3 minutes to speak on the agenda item. Do we have any public comments?
Yes, sir. We have two. Bill Redden and Tom Gerald Sr.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name's Bill Redden. I live at 28163 Bradshaw Circle. I just got the occupancy about a year ago for the residents on Bradshaw Circle. Myself and surrounding residents are opposed to general plan change and the zoning change as well. What we see as a general plan issue here is that the general plan of 2040, which was just passed a year and a half ago, as you all know, specified there would be 5 dwellings per acre. Now we have a year and a half later, proposal to change that to an R10. The Moreno Valley General Plan be considered the cities, and what I wanted to point out was a couple of issues that are required in the general plan. The first of it is the Moreno Valley General Plan can be considered the city's development constitution containing both a statement of community's vision of its long-term development. The general plan land use map illustrates the long-term vision for the development and conservation in the planning area. Having a general plan amendment less than a year and a half is inconsistent with the city's general plan scope and purpose. Second, developments need to be consistent with the general plan policies. Under policy goal LLC, which I'm running out of time, essentially there's supposed to be a transition. If you look on there's a diagram, I have Exhibit A I classified. You look at the project and you can look around the surrounding developments that are already there, and even to the west that are proposed, there's a substantial difference between what this project is proposing to install than what there is. And I don't see a transitional zone to those parcels. The issues with the initial negative declaration on page 29, inaccurate statement. The projects provide 37 new single-family residents. Essentially, they're going to be similar. Again, they don't appear to be similar at all. And in fact, I give a pretty much detailed description of what the issues are. Finally, issues the conditional approval. As a stand, the traffic. Big surprise, there's about 365 vehicles going down Bradshaw. Now, the only improvements along is going to the west or to the south, you might say, south, and going towards the west to Stater Brothers. This project's not required to do any improvements. There are some projects coming online, but this is a private street. It does not meet current city standards. So the question is, how long will it be before their major deterioration with 359 vehicles as their own traffic study said? Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker.
Tom Gerald, speaking on behalf of myself, Commissioner Desjardins, I apologize, and Vice Chair Chen, and the commissioners and members of the staff and the public. I have a little bit of general plan experience. I was on the original city general plan back in the 85 till about 89. It was actually about a 4-year thing. We were about 2 years active, and then we went dormant while it went through planning commission and city council. Saw a lot of changes from what came out of our committee through the commission and stuff, but that plan wasn't barely, I don't think the ink was dry, and the city was back redoing a whole new general plan within, I think, 2 years. So it's not terribly uncommon. I do think the previous speaker had some very valid comments, and they need to be taken into consideration. But when I first looked at the location and the size of the parcel, I mean, if I were developing it, and I have some acumen in that, I'm not the biggest guy around, but I've done a few things, I'd probably be coming at you for, a higher density apartment project or something, in the area. So, this type of housing, I think you're going to see a lot more of it. Not only fits the market today, it fits the future. I mean, given the high cost of maintaining property, irrigation, water use, things like that, energy, this is the wave of the future. And given the high traffic count on already on Cottonwood Avenue, I think it's a proper project for the area. So I support it. I don't think it's a bad project, but some of the comments were, to be considered, and I'm sure you can work out reasonable mitigations. So thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers?
No, sir.
Okay, so without any other speakers at this time, I'd like to close the public testimony section. Would the applicant like to provide any other additional information? Thank you. Well, I guess that we're going to move into deliberations.
I have a question of staff.
Yeah.
Oh,
Go for it, Sam.
So I guess maybe I'm being oblivious today, but so the Bradshaw East, West, and part that goes, or yeah, the entire circle, that's a private road.
That's correct. It is a private road.
So so the ownership of the underlying property of Bradshaw Circle. So if I was the owner of a parcel adjacent to it, I'd own halfway out to the center line of Bradway Circle.
I'll refer that to land development.
Yes, that is correct with the private street.
So who holds the liability if somebody slips and trips and does an Aflac, gets hurt, can't work on my property? That's a private street. How does that work? What I'm not trying to be smart. I just don't understand the legality of that. How does that work?
As a private street, it would not be the city's responsibility. So it would.
But that wasn't my question. Who, if I owned that piece of property and I owned underlying property to the center line of the street, I would assume that there was an offer of dedication to the city that's not accepted.
That's correct.
So I still own the property. I'm saying, so who has the responsibility if somebody gets hurt on that piece of property?
The underlying property owner.
So, so now we're adding another 359 potential cars into this private road. So why can't the city, as part of these, why didn't the city, as part of these 3 new developments, require that at least the parts that are adjacent to? I mean, I certainly get it. I certainly get that the half street along these bigger, where these 2-acre lots or whatever on the south side of Bradshaw Circle, maybe they don't want to sell their half part of their street, but why couldn't we? I mean, a resolution could have been to just say, you don't get as much property. You have to move you have to give a public street, and you have to move it all onto your property so the city can have a real street and not have this issue. Is that beyond the realm of common sense, or it's too much money?
It would result in public street ownership being segmented. So if we would have required the 2 cul-de-sac projects on the north side of the street to dedicate the north half of the street to the city and the city was willing to accept it, the north half would be maintained by the city and the south half would be maintained by each underlying property owner.
Well, but we know that doesn't happen. There's
That's
the
correct.
there's the I think there was that apartment complex or townhouse thing that along Cottonwood right there as it gets up to Paris Boulevard, and there's dead end streets that butt into it. And you drive up the private dead end streets and you have to have a Jeep or a Can-Am to get up the street because the potholes will swallow the cars. So nobody takes care of the thing. So I think it just creates a potential cluster of potholes. There's a new one for you, a cluster of potholes. Somebody could run on that, you know that? Anyhow, that's your election slogan for one of you guys. There you go. Anyhow, that's a concern. I don't understand. Can't the homeowner, underlying property owners work out some kind of, is there a clever legal way that the city could take the ownership of that, even though it's a private street, to maintain it so it's not going to degrade?
If each individual property owner would be willing to dedicate that street to the city and the city's willing to accept it, then that would be a way to make that entire horseshoe of a street be a public street. But it would take each individual property owner that fronts the street, that owns to the half the center line, to want to dedicate it to the city. So that
Those
it'd be
RC
a-
Hobbs. So you're telling me you're not requiring RC Hobbs to do that because you'd have a set, what you said some kind of term, a segmented private to public.
Right.
Is there a way for the deed on the track map, or to have by separate instrument, the dedication made for the part that's on this proposed project, to dedicate that if such time?
We can't make the developer be responsible for an offsite improvement that is contingent on another property owner. So they can't, for this project, we can't make this developer require this developer to make each individual property owner that fronts on Bradshaw Circle dedicate the right of way. We can't impose that condition on this developer or on any development, one development.
Is there any way to legally create a requirement that HOA be formed to maintain? I guess you can't because it's other people's property. Yeah, that's seems like that's a okay. Thank you.
Okay, I'll just remind commissioners, we're in the deliberation stage here. I don't know if the deliberation stage allots for questions of staff. I think we passed the questions of staff.
It's up to you.
So deliberate,
Yeah, you did.
So are we deliberating?
Okay, we're in the deliberation for,
So-
but what I'd have to defer that, are we able to ask questions of staff, or are we just in the deliberation phase?
You would need to reopen the public hearing to ask questions of staff. I don't know if I actually heard you close the public hearing for deliberation though either. So I would just suggest that you reopen the public hearing for questions of staff.
It does sound like the commissioners have some questions of
Yeah.
staff, so if we can reopen the public hearing.
And if I may, one of the conditions that we may suggest that the commission consider is that, and we would have to ask the applicant if they would be amenable to said condition, is that should there ever be a future offer of dedication, that ultimately this property is required to enter into dedication of their portion of the right of way along Bradshaw. So it is not forcing everybody to offer dedication of Bradshaw today. It is just the applicant themselves and their property frontage to be put into an offer. Thereby, if everybody else does, then the city can consider that dedication at a future date, should all the rest of the property owners do the same. So it's similar to what you wanted to do, Commissioner Sims, but it doesn't put it into place immediately.
Oh, but that's kind of. My concern,
Oh, go ahead. Just on that one thing is that's good. You're on the right path here, but that seems like a way to go. But were the other two recent approvals did we think about that then? Or am I incrementally getting smarter or dumber here right now? I haven't decided, but anyhow,
I
did we?
Yeah, the other two cul-de-sac projects on the north side of Bradshaw were conditioned per the municipal code to construct half the street plus a 12-foot lane on the south side. In terms of the dedication, because it was considered a private street, it was not conditioned to dedicate public right-of-way for those two projects.
I wasn't sitting.
I guess, well, hang on. It seems from a subdivision map act, though, that would be near impossible. It's an endless do loop because a person is going to own it would require a parcel map or something. Or if the city would undertake it, you might be able to get around just doing a, yeah. All right.
Are you gonna go Baker?
Um,
You gonna ask something?
No.
Okay.
Thank you for giving us a moment to just have a brief conversation amongst staff relative to the logistics of this private street. Clement will be providing an answer.
So we can ask the developer to dedicate the right-of-way on Bradshaw Circle along their map frontage and as a lettered lot. So that way, on the final map, we would not accept it because it's not built per city standard. But the offer of dedication would stand in perpetuity so that if and whenever all the other property owners around Bradshaw Circle decide to dedicate the right-of-way, then, and if the city wishes to then accept all of the pieces of the right-of-way that make up Bradshaw Circle, we would have this offer of dedication in perpetuity from this project to then accept it.
I see. All right, well, at that point, it kind of sounds like we may want to continue this item. I mean, with some,
That would be a condition that we would look to whether or not the applicant would be able to accept. That's about as far as we would be able to go because the rest of the street is held by private entities that the applicant has no control over. So we would not be able to require the applicant to do something with a private property they do not control.
okay. Well, then I would say that we would continue on with our deliberations and make a decision.
But, hey, we still had some questions.
Want to open back up public so that you can ask questions of
You
staff.
keep closing the door.
Okay.
Oh, Gonna ask yours?
Well,
Wait, hang on. So we have to reopen the public testimony. Okay, so at this time, we'll reopen the public hearing because it would seem as though we have some questions for commissioners. No, public hearing, right? So that we can ask questions of staff. Okay, so right now, the public hearing portion of this meeting is reopened.
You could also open it to allow for questions of the applicant as well as I see their engineer is present now.
Oh, okay.
So
Good evening, Planning Commission members. My name is Bob Beers. I'm the civil engineer on the project, and Southern California traffic is very difficult. I left West LA at 2:30 to get here just now. Real quick, regarding the dedications, one of the appropriate mechanisms under the Subdivision Map Act would be to a condition of approval to require the project to make an irrevocable offer of dedication to the city placed on the final map, and then not accepted at the time of recordation of the final map at this time. However, there is another provision under the Subdivision Map Act where the city could condition the developer to make a good faith effort to acquire offsite right-of-way. And should the developer be able to do that, that would then allow the city to then potentially accept the full right-of-way dedication of the other offsite pieces of Bradshaw Circle. And the condition of the Subdivision Map Act provision basically has an allowance for a good faith effort by the developer, and upon either completion of that or unable to complete that, upon providing proof that that portion can be relieved by the city to allow the final map to record. It's a nuance very seldom used, but it does address to some degree the concerns I've heard raised by the Planning Commission members.
Can I ask something? Evan?
Well, thank you, sir. Are there any questions of the applicant?
Yes. Would you be willing for us to postpone until you do that? So there wasn't up in the air that whether or not it's going to be done?
I would respectfully request the Planning Commission to move forward tonight and for the project determination. This would be a condition of approval. That's something, these kinds of things would take some period of time, but that would be addressed during what we call the final engineering process for the preparation of final improvement plans and the final map, and working with staff and the city attorney's office. So it's something that, again, we can only directly make an offer of dedication of the property that we own, but we can also tonight state that we'd accept a condition to make an effort to obtain the offsite right away under a good faith effort under the appropriate section of the Subdivision Map Act.
we already have that condition in place. It's condition 76.
oh,
Any other questions of the applicant? Of course.
I do. I don't know if it's a staff or you seem to have the subdivision back. So what the status of the two cul-de-sac projects? Those are not recorded maps, correct?
That's correct.
And if I heard what I heard you say, I apologize. What was your name again?
Clement Jimenez?
I Mr. Benz, so the city, even if there is an irrevocable offer for a proposed right-of-way or dedication, right-of-way dedication, the city would not accept that until such time there was a complete ability to have a full road.
Yes.
Okay. So suffice to say, if the two cul-de-sac tracks are not recorded yet, if RC Hobbs goes to cul-de-sac owner 1, cul-de-sac owner 2 track, it says, hey, we want you to do a lettered lot, put up an irrevocable. Does that create any kind of a track map amendment or something? Is there a way to administratively do that to create because it would parcel off, create 2 lettered lots, or it would create 4 lettered lots in theory on these other tentative track maps that are not recorded.
It's typical on a final map that each street that's proposed and offered for dedication, some of the streets that are intended to be public, the offer of dedication will be accepted, while those that are intended to be private, the offer of dedication will not be accepted. So to answer your question, yes, that's certainly doable, and it's done all the time in the owner statement of the final map. The offer of dedication is made there. And in the city clerk statement, the offer is either accepted or not accepted.
Right. And it wouldn't be accepted because you wouldn't have complete all the way out to until such time another development along Merino Beach would go. So, but I guess more fundamental to my question is the tentative track that had a certain configuration, it says certain size lots, and it was approved under that. Now you're going to go on the lots that are fronting Bradshaw Circle would have 30 feet or something nipped off of those lots that front that, and you would create lettered lots. Does that create any kind of issue?
No, the tentative maps were approved with the road right away, even though it's private, in mind. So, yeah.
All right. So that relieves at least my concern. Potentially, if you did do a good faith effort, before a private owner gets into here talking to developer, they may be able to modify that on their owner statement or something on their title record map.
May I make one more item? Simply put, even if the map was not set up that way, nothing would prohibit the city from accepting right-of-way dedication by separate instrument. So that would not affect the map.
I'm exhausted.
Yeah, Sean, question in regards to this. So it seems like the main concern is Bradshaw Circle. Is there a process to have this redone, to just have the entrance exit on Cactus, and so that there's no one exiting or entering onto Bradshaw at all? You just have everything on Cactus.
So right off the bat, what I will say is a project of this type will require 2 points of access. So eliminating all access onto Bradshaw would not be a possibility. I'll defer again to Public Works with regards to street separations, driveway separations, and what those considerations would be and whether or not that's achievable on this project.
Yes, one of the objectives when land division map comes in is to try to limit the number of local streets intersecting an arterial street. Cactus Street is a busy street. It's classified as a minor arterial, and we try to limit the number of driveways onto it or local streets. That's why the 2 entrances to the subdivision are proposed off of Bradshaw.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, concerns?
No, the only thing I'd like to, how on earth do we got so many private streets around town. How's this happen? I mean, I know this is a long time ago that happened out there. It doesn't happen now, though. If somebody comes in, they've got to develop a street or they don't do it, right?
We actually are seeing more private streets actually starting to come into town again. as a result of, maintenance responsibilities that are desired by different homeowners associations and those types of things. When it comes to many of the older streets in town that were local type streets, in a lot of cases, the county of Riverside, the county of San Bernardino, depending on how far back you go, was not accepting those streets. And ultimately, when the city came in, because of the design of those streets being substandard, we didn't accept them either when we incorporated.
So they were there and nothing you can do about it, right? Pretty much.
Correct.
Okay, got it. Okay, that's all I had.
Good. All right. So at this time, I'd like to close the public hearing session of this. Can I hit the gavel or something? Okay. And I'd like to, at this time, we'll move into deliberations. I think we were doing some of that already.
I'll get us started. A project like this is, even the lot sizes and the properties are not necessarily something that's for me personally, but I do know that there is a need. I have a family member recently that just purchased a townhome, and she likes it. She likes the low maintenance of it. She likes the fact that it's just coming in and out. It's for her and her daughter, and I think it makes sense. Not for me, but it makes sense for many people in this community. So, again, I do have some concerns also with the Bradshaw Street and. Especially with these new developers, I feel these three developers together should develop the entire street. All new developers coming into the city should have to pay and maintain and what's in it for the city? What's in it for the city? I think at this point, Moreno Valley is becoming a hotspot for developers coming in and not willing to pay their dues. I think it's due time that we put the screws on them, and there needs to be. I still feel like they need to figure that street out. These three developers. I like the project. I think it's cool. But again, just that one street. But it made perfect sense when you said, you don't want a lot of streets coming into Cactus. It is a very busy street. You're right. It would create more traffic. And I live in the area, so I know where this is at. Hopefully that next lot next to it completes that missing piece right there for those other homes. So I like it.
All right, I'll go. The project itself, I like. I don't like that these three homes here are going to be charged with maintaining a road that we're going to allow all these vehicles to drive on every day and tear up and all that. I understand they own half the street and the city owns the other half. But I mean, if I own my front lawn and the city owns the sidewalk, but if everyone is walking on my sidewalk and I have to maintain it, or I'm sorry, on my grass, I'm not gonna like that. So thinking of those who are already there, and that expense to maintain that road, because I'm sure if it, with all these cars being driven on it, if it gets torn up, the city's going to come and say you have to repair it, and that's going to be a struggle, for those homeowners who are currently there, and that's where I'm at. I don't know. I like the project. I don't like what's going to be forced upon those residents who are already there.
Yeah, the project itself, that it's like Cobian said, it's the way it's going. People do not want these big lots and everything. Now, the project itself, just by itself, standalone, it's a good project and it's fine. But then you've got the Bradshaw Circle issue. And I'm kind of like with Chen, if that was me, and that house here is fairly new home. If that were me, I would not want to be liable because the city isn't liable. And so I wouldn't want to be liable for something happening on that street. That's my issue. If I put myself in the place of the owner of this, is the fact that it is, the liability will fall on, like Chen said, if you own that portion of it, I'm sure you're going to be liable for that. We just got through hearing the city's not liable. So I have a concern with that. That's just, but the project, it's a great project. I mean, if it was anywhere else where you'd be able to have good access, but you're going to have all these cars coming in and out. So that's my issue, is that the liability for whoever owns that portion of the road. That's just where I'm at.
I'll go. I have the same concerns. I just pulled up on Google to see that it looks like there's several more acres going to the east. And then when you get further to the east, it's just another traditional, looks like an R5 subdivision. So there's a big vacant, probably 10 acres or, 10 acres or whatever it is. Ideally, if there could be 10 acres of development where you'd have some internal, and you wouldn't even have to screw around with Bradshaw Circle to have ingress and egress. I get that that's, if we were playing shoots and ladders and stuff like that. But anyhow, what the gentleman has spoke that I don't know where he apparently lives right over here, but the thing about the general plan amendment, I do, the city went through an exhaustive effort to develop a 2040 general plan, because we're cutting the tail of the dog off an inch at a time with general plan amendment. The gentleman said, Tom Gerald came and said, well, he was on the founding general plan, and the ink was still probably they were doing it with the machines like that. I just joking. Anyhow, but they were making changes to it. So I don't know. It seems like here we are going again. We just did general plan, and now here we're amending it. And I don't know. And then combining that with this private street problem, it seems like this is a 37 lot project like this with the money that would go into that, and we're still messing around with little private streets. I get that this is a problem that's been created, but we're perpetuating problem with the approval of the cul-de-sac, another cul-de-sac, and now this, and it's just, I don't know. It seems like if this project going east, if there was a bigger project going east where they could have internal circulation that comes back out to Cactus without messing around with this, maybe that would. But anyhow, that's not what's in front of us right now. So,
Commissioners, this is Colin Kirkpatrick with the City Attorney's Office. I just wanted to remind you, in reviewing the entitlements, as you know, there's resolutions associated with it with the various entitlements, and certain findings have been proposed by staff. And I'd remind you that in making your determination, we should look at the findings laid out, and for especially the conditional use permit and the tract map, those are what are considered quasi adjudicatory decisions, where we have to make specific findings in order to, if the commission were to decide they wanted to not recommend council approve, we would need to make one of those findings in the negative. So the findings that are listed in the affirmative, we would have to try to find evidence in the record which supports finding one of those findings in the negative. And at this point, I understand the concern about the private roads. So it's something to be considered, but we do need to try to look at that in the context of sort of what rules we're playing by and what findings would be required.
Thank you. Listening to this, I'm saying I hear you, I understand, and the training that we went through to say, yeah, we have to point to a specific finding. Whichever way we're going to go with it. I think the part that really got me was when the comment was made: if someone were to get hurt and the liability to fall on the private owners. That's rough. I don't know where that could be found at, but I tell you, 365 vehicle traffic, and to put a private person liable for that if something were to happen. I don't even know how that even is possible to come up. I think Commissioner Chin had a very good analogy. Somebody comes in next to me and they put 365 traffics in daily traffic, and if somebody falls on my property, I'm responsible for that. That's rough. So,
Chair, if I may interject, that condition does already exist. You have 2 track maps that have been previously approved for 18 units between the pair of them. So you're looking at that condition already existing today. Plus, they are open and accessible and can be utilized by the general public.
yeah, condition 76 was part of the.
But
that
yeah,
was the
condition
dedication.
70, condition 76
Mhm.
allows us to require the applicant to make a good faith effort to work with the adjacent property owners to effectively dedicate that entire street to the city potentially. The city still has the ultimate decision of whether or not we're going to accept it, but it does put the onus on the developer to make a good faith effort to work with those property owners to move towards dedicating that street to the city of Moreno Valley. Again, it is a decision of the council ultimately to accept, but that condition's put in place for that very purpose.
I understand. Other than that, I love the way that the project looks. It's fantastic. It's the way we're going. The big lots are kind of dinosaurs. They're kind of moving out. So I like the way the project looks. Other than that, any other commissioners?
Got one. How long ago did we approve those, that 8-track? I think I kind of remember something in a 6-track. The planning commission approved that, correct?
Those were approved in from my recollection, it was 2019 and 2020.
And I can't remember what kind of conversation we had about Bradshaw Circle then. I mean, I know we had something going on. How did we get around that at that point, being a private road?
There was no specific discussion relative to that that went to this extent.
So those people, those 14 homes over there, they're liable for that Bradshaw Circle too, right? To a certain extent, liability on that private road, or am I wrong?
I personally don't know how that is set up and if there's an association or if it's privately owned to the center line. So I can't necessarily comment other than to say that if it's a private road, again, apologize for not addressing your actual question, but the city wouldn't be liable, but it therefore would fall on liability on somebody else. But I'm not certain how that's set up.
Thank you. No, I like the project, and I like the idea that they're going to put 2 cars in the garage and 2 in the driveway. That's always been an issue on these 0 lot lines. But this road deal's got me puzzled. I think we went through this a little bit a couple years ago, like you say, on those cul-de-sacs, and somehow we kind of went over that. But I think we need to get this thing straightened out one way or the other. And I don't know if the developers, if somebody could go to work and see if we could get all that street. I know that's going to add on to the projects, but if it was me, I would want a street and gutter. That's asphalt out there, asphalt gutters now. And that they're all falling apart on that Bradshaw. From what I could see today, it was nothing to write home about. But I don't know if the developer's if he really wants to get this done, I think he needs to get with those property owners. We got, what do we have? 4 identities there, the people that own that track and these other 2 and the property owner in the center. That correct? Is that 4 people we're talking about, or?
It would be more than that, sir.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, because you'd have, okay. I see what yeah. And if those homes are sold, somewhere we got to take the bull by the horns here and get this straightened out. And I don't know what it is, but.
And again, I will point back to condition 76. That does put the onus on the applicant to make a good faith effort to do such.
I'd sure encourage that. Okay, thank you.
So at this moment, does this proposed project comply with all applicable zoning? And oh, everyone's asking. So right now, it doesn't meet applicable zoning. That's, you know, that's, right, no, well, that's what I'm getting at, like, I mean, that's the finding right
that
there.
could be your finding.
That's our finding, it doesn't currently fit.
If there are any other deliberations, we have a motion and a second.
I'll make a motion. To make a motion. Where is it? I make a motion that the Plan Commission consider adopting resolution number 2022-43
There's a revision.
with the revisions as provided on condition number 115.
Second. Chip,
I'm sorry,
we would need 43 through 46, correct?
43
Oh.
through 46.
Or 43 through,
And 46 has the,
Okay, where is it here?
resolutions 43 through 46 with the amendment to 46 would be staff's suggestion.
As so stated. I'll amend my motion to say it just like the planning director, planning official stated, to accommodate the,
I second.
A motion made by Commissioner Sims and a second made by Commissioner Coe. Can we have a vote? All right, the motion does not pass. We have a wrap up.
Being that it was denied, we will need findings for a denial this evening.
All right, what's our findings there? Conditions 76.
43 through 46, 46 was an amendment.
I believe the findings was that the current proposal does not comply with the current zoning of the general plan 2042. I don't know if that suffices.
I would also potentially say that there's, the proposed project will not, that the finding that the project will not be detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare, or materially injurious to properties or improvements in the vicinity. I would tend to believe that if I had a lawsuit for a slipping or somebody driving and getting, because I didn't fix a pothole that was on my property and they veered off and did something, that would be a material damage.
Could be more.
Right, so again, I want to clarify what the determination was and the purpose for the denial.
Not confined to the current zoning.
Okay.
And
It's not consistent with the current general plan, and it also, I'm looking at section 4 of the resolution 46, suggesting perhaps also item C or subsection C of section 4, the proposed project will be detrimental to public health, safety, welfare, or materially injurious to properties or improvements in the vicinity. I don't know, because that could
Ultimately,
be
if this is a denial, really the only denial action the planning commission would need to take is the general plan. If the general plan and it's inconsistent and the finding is that it's inconsistent, that would be the extent of the denial that would be necessary. If you'd like to state also with relation to 46, we can look at that as well.
I have got to leave. I literally got to get on an airplane, right? So I have to leave.
So how does that work?
You'd be excused from the meeting at this point.
Okay, you're.
I'll forego my stipend. I got to go. My wife will kill me.
You started this, Jeff. You started this.
Wow. All right. The next item on the agenda is other commissioner business. We don't have any.
Chair, if we can do a staff wrap up.
Oh, I'm sorry, staff wrap up.
The action taken this evening by the Planning Commission is an appealable action. Any interested party that would like to file an appeal may do so within 10 days of the action. Actually, since this is a general plan, it'll be 15 days of the action. If the appeal is filed, it must be in writing and directed to the Community Development Director, stating the specific reasons for the appeal, along with the appeal filing fee. If an appeal is received, it will be agendized for a public hearing before the City Council.
All right. Hang on, sir. The next item on the agenda is other commissioner business, and at this time, we don't have any items. The next item is staff comments. Do we have any staff comments at this time?
Just wanted to introduce our new associate planner, Danielle Harper Scott. And that's all I have for this evening. Thank you.
I have one. Staff comments.
Do you have anything?
No comments.
The next item on the agenda is planning commissioner comments. Do we have any comments at this time?
Just real quick, Marine Corps birthday. Want to wish all the Marines out there happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Marines. All right.
I just want to congratulate Mayor Cician Gutierrez on his strong potential victory, and also Ulysses Cabrera on his strong potential victory as well.
Any other commissioner comments? All right, then. At this time, I'd like to adjourn the planning commission meeting is adjourned at 7:15 p.m. until our next special meeting on November 17th at 6 p.m.